Both a frustrating and semi-encouraging loss for the Indiana Fever against the Minnesota Lynx. Frustrating because the Fever were frustrated throughout the game, and because the Lynx are really maybe the worst matchup, I think, specifically for Indiana because of their personnel and their play style. They are long and athletic. They play defense across the board. They can shoot. It's the kind of thing that can frustrate and muck up what the Fever like to do with their fast-paced offense, especially when Minnesota is getting away with some physicality, as they did in this game, and especially because the Lynx's best player goes up against the weakest position on the Fever. I still think the Fever are probably one player away from being like dominant, and that player is a power forward who is also versatile enough to cover wings. Regardless, despite all the frustration, why I say it's encouraging is a couple of reasons. Number one, the Fever let it get the best of them for a minute, and they were upset with the refs as well, maybe rightfully so at times. But you can't let that, make you lose your head. And number two, Caitlin Clark continues to hit shots that are going to make her unstoppable if she can do them consistently. You're seeing her more and more taking aggressively the mid-range shot and the floater. When you add that to her deep three and her playmaking and her ability to finish, it's really, really going to be tough to deal with. But, the frustration was apparent throughout the game in this one, including from Caitlin Clark. You can see her walking to the sidelines here. It looks like she is mouthing some sort of expletive-laden rant about call the foul. You see it on her face right there. So that was one instance. She also sarcastically clapped for the refs on one instance in the game as well. This one right here, you could see Caitlin take it to the rack, and then she finally gets rewarded with a foul call and gives them a little mock applause. She's getting away with a lot out there. Lucky she didn't pick up a technical foul, to be honest, on that play. But you like the competitiveness, of course. I'm sure somebody will find that and try and make it into a big deal, as is often the thing with Clark. But one of the biggest moments in this game to me is when Lexi Hull picked up a foul late in the fourth quarter that made it so she had to sit on the bench to, try to come in at the very end. And they kind of fell apart defensively there after that fifth foul for Lexi Hull. And that's when Katie Lou Samuelson came into the game. And when you combine Katie Lou with Nalissa Smith at the same time defensively, you're going to have a bad time. Just too slow defensively. And you saw it on this play right here. Katie Lou just gets cooked on the crossover, can't stay in front, and lazily reaches in for the foul and an and one on Heidemann there. That was kind of, one of those seal the deal type of plays late in the game. And it happened after Hull had to take a seat for a moment. Maybe, you could argue side should have let her ride. Definitely could argue that. I also get, Lexi plays very feisty, very aggressive. So I get wanting to save her, but it shows how integral Lexi Hull has been for this team as a hustle player, as a defensive player, as somebody who can just move quick, and obviously a shooter in moments as well. And there was a play early in the game that I thought was very encouraging, and it saw Hull attack a closeout. If she can start making plays off the bounce, off of her open shot making, that adds yet another dimension to the team. So, she had to sit down, and they kind of fell apart at that point because Nalissa Smith had another one of her games that she just didn't have it. Mentally, physically, didn't have it and really didn't produce. Dantas barely got any tick in this game. Fagbenle got some tick, and she's better defensively, I think, but limited offensively. And that's that position that they don't really have that perfect do-it-all player yet. And that's that position, I think, that takes them over the top. Nonetheless, they're able to fight back in the game, and they get right there. I mean, this was anybody's game with a couple of minutes left after the Kelsey Mitchell 3, especially the one that got Tyrese Halliburton out of his seat. And, you see the score there, after that, anybody's game at that section, after this Kelsey Mitchell 3, another one where she's just not afraid to take it and knock it down. 1-point game. 1-point game at that juncture with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So despite getting frustrated and letting the game get away from them, the Fever fought back and were right back in the game with a chance to win it. They just didn't. And I also thought this was Kelsey Mitchell's worst performance in a long time. Overall, she, took some shots that were frustrating. And I usually don't get mad at her shot selection because she's such a bucket. But she took some difficult long twos over defense when I thought she could have passed it back out. But it is what it is. It happens. Not everybody plays great all the time. She's been so good that it's really hard to take issue with her. I just didn't think it was one of her best games. And, she's a little bit on the smaller side defensively, which also amplifies the Fever's weaknesses against a team like the Lynx that can punish you with that pull-up game that we saw from them in this one, their ball movement and their shooting prowess. But again, Caitlin Clark taking the ball into the in-between, taking the ball up strong. All these things are really encouraging for playoff matchups and playoff-type defense. Shots like that. The Lynx, maybe the best defensive team in the league. And you see her in traffic there, not afraid to put it up. And then I think the thing that has really unlocked Clark post-Olympics is her three ball has fallen. And it just makes it so tough because you have to go all the way out to contest her and guard her. And that's just a problem for anybody, the way she can, hurt you with her passing as well. And you see it here. I think this was her fifth three-pointer of the game. This is the one where she fired the crowd up. Again, another big shot that got them right back in striking distance. And Caitlin fired up the crowd right after that. So, that deep three ball falling consistently for Clark has been a huge sea change as far as her scoring. Because now you're going to start seeing her hit, 25, 30, 35 points with regularity when that is going down. So the Fever frustrated with the refs, the Fever facing an opponent that may be best suited to go against them, and Lexi Hull getting a foul that takes her out of the game for a minute. Kelsey Mitchell not playing her best game. And yet they're right there in the game at the end. They're right there in the game at the end. So, yes, it's frustrating, but I also think in a sense it's encouraging because it shows where this team is headed in the near future. And then, of course, the future beyond that. It shows they can compete with anybody. And they already clinched a playoff berth. So a loss here or there the rest of the way ain't going to hurt. You just don't want to see a Minnesota matchup early.